Hey guys, I wanted to get another video out for everybody. First, I wanted to start off and thank everybody who commented on the video, everybody who found it helpful and let me know. I really appreciate that. Like, I don't do this for money, obviously. I don't have any subscribers or anything like that. So, I wanted to thank everybody who let me know that they enjoyed it, lets me know that I should make another one. Uh, I have had this build ready to go for a couple of days. I've just been taking a quick little break from ASTROLOOT, playing some other games. But I wanted to get this out so everybody could have another build to try if they wanted to. This is going to be another Parasite build. I really enjoy Parasite. This build does not work without parasites. Um, there definitely is ways to use this weapon without parasites, but we're basically abusing the fact that plutonium rod, it damages you. We're abusing the fact that parasites do not have a health bar, so therefore they cannot be damaged by plutonium rod. Excuse me. And without being damaged by it, we don't have to build nearly as much defensives against nuclear resistance. It's a non-issue. The damage is 50%, and even with having one on your ship with Infestus, it's still a non-issue. So it's really nice quality of life. What's the word I'm looking for? Like connection there. Synergy, that's the word I was looking for. Alright. I'm going to go over the skill tree first. I'm going to show like a baby version of the skill tree, or a new version, if you will, just to help you get through the story, and then what you can eventually convert into later on, what I did personally. Some of the gear is going to have overlap from the last build, which is where it is a Parasite build, and Papyrus, in my opinion, is basically best in slot for most builds. There probably are ones that are stronger for some builds, but having that huge amount of increased effective fields is pretty hard to beat. We'll go over the gear a little bit later here as well. So let's just get into the skill tree, and I'll explain everything as we go here. So first thing we're going to go over is the ascendancies. Then I'll reset my skill tree, show you the baby version, and then I'll show you the bigger version afterwards. We went with Shay. Shay is literally designed for Parasite skills. If you're playing Parasite, it might be a better idea to actually play this than another ship. I find Parasite works with everything. Like I did it with the tank ship, it was just fine. But this one definitely allows you to scale the Parasite stuff a lot harder. So you're going to get plus 3 to your maximum Parasite, and they're going to do 10% more damage. They're going to spawn 50% faster and do 50% more damage. You're going to be able to attach 2 additional parasites to a target. This is huge for your single target. Basically, every additional parasite is another instance of your attack that's being attached to the enemy. So it's basically a 100% more scalar if you only have one, and then it goes down from there. But it's very big. And then we take this, we get plus 25 to energy, and then 1% increased area damage per energy. So the reason we're taking this build is primarily an energy stacker. So we're going to be stacking energy for a very powerful penta dip. Actually, it's not going to be a double dip or a triple dip or a quad dip. We're going to be penta dipping on energy. So energy is going to be your biggest scalar. It is absolutely massive in this build. One thing we're going to do here now is I am going to reset the skill tree. We're going to go all the way back down to here. We're not going to save that. And I'm going to show you the path I initially took. Alright? So thermal damage is going to help us early on. Essentially what we're going to be doing is we are going to be converting a lot of our damage. This isn't going to be huge until you are converting the damage, because the thermal damage scaling is going to help. But essentially, we're going to be converting our nuclear damage to explosive and then converting it back. Um, and then also converting it to electric and then converting it back. And I'll explain that later on. So this will be very powerful. It won't be much initially, but you will get that 2 energy. Um, your path that you take here doesn't matter too much. It's if you're leveling and you want to use a different weapon just to get more damage early on until you get to like... I don't think the weapon drops till about level 30 anyway. Choose whatever weapon you want till about level 30 and go with whatever line you need to here. Then you're going to go down to here. Oh, you're going to go down here, I should say. And mind you, we're sticking with this path because we don't really have access to Plutonium Rod right off the bat. If you manage to get extremely low level Plutonium Rod, you can change your pathing and go around here and just get this 2 energy rather than going through here. It saves you a lot of points on the pathing. It's only 1, 2, 3, 4, where this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Then you're going to come down to here. At least this is where I came initially because I was using an electric weapon. If you are not using an electric weapon, same thing with this diamond right here. You can choose one of the other ones. And this is just for leveling, right? This isn't for the actual build itself. Once you do get the gear, I'll show you the other path you take. And you can probably switch to the other tree, I'd say around 60, 70, which is pretty early into the game. You're going to come up here. You can skip past this until you actually have your nuclear skill. You can take this on the way. This is a huge way to get some tankiness because 40% of the damage you take will be absorbed by your dash instead. This build is obviously on the glass cannon ship. It is pretty squishy. You are going to have to avoid things. You're not just going to want to take them to the chin. That will not be a good idea. If you're running any crit chance and this gives you damage, you can grab this along the way. But personally, I just went up here, straight up. Oh, sorry. Straight up, grab the chip. The chip slot is very nice to have. If you're able to craft any sort of chip at a low level and put it in there, it'll be a big increase to your damage. And then we come up here. This is where the energy stacking comes in, and this is where you'll start getting some nice damage scaling. So we're going to get 1% increased thermal energy, or thermal damage per energy. We're going to get 1% increased deflector shield per energy, so that gives us some tankiness right there. And then if we come over, I believe it's right here. You went by it already, so you can grab these on the way as well. You're going to get 1% crit damage per energy and 1.2% critical strike chance per energy. So that's 4 different things we get to scale with energy on the tree, and then the 5th one's right here, right? So it becomes pretty easy to just scale your stats on this build with just these nodes. You just get a bunch of energy. The more energy you get, the more basically everything goes up. The next path you're going to take is right to here. You're going to go get that. That's 14% increased energy, so that's pretty big. You can come over to here, grab your Tinker King to get more effect on your fields. You can come over and grab this gem socket if you would like. You are going to grab that later because you're going to put your chaos circuit in it. But for now, any gem that you can, I say gem, chip that you can craft that like has explosive or whatever damage you need on it. It doesn't need to look like this early on. This one isn't even perfect anyway. You'd want something better than this later on, but just anything that can give you stat. Chips are extremely powerful. You can never underestimate those. Those can be a huge amount of damage in your build. This can be a little bit extra damage early on if you feel like you need it. You can just grab that. You're going to be applying viruses to your enemies. You always want to be doing that. So that's just 12% more damage. And there's 6% on the way as well, so 18%. That's pretty huge. I'm just trying to think if there's other nodes for the beginning. So after you get up there, you probably want to start coming back down here at a starter point. You can grab this multi-luck. Multi-luck is huge. It's another chip socket right here. If you want some range, there's some range right there. You don't have to grab that if you don't feel like you need it. You eventually do need to make your way over to here. I feel like once you're at this point, this is going to be the area where you're going to probably have your plutonium rod, and you're going to be good to switch over. And then you would want to take this. So your damage over time can trigger on hit effects. Once you get that, you can come grab this as well. And then you can spec into this. Actually, let me just do that a little bit slower here because I'm kind of jumping around. So after you've got all the way up to here and you've got your Tinker King and you've got this, you're going to want to come back down the tree and just make your way along. Grab the multi-luck. And if you have your plutonium rod, at that point you'd want to grab aberration. Once you've got aberration, you can come down here, grab this increased damage over time you would like, and then make your way back up here. You're going to have 50% of explosive damage converted to nuclear, and it's going to let your nuclear damage aftershock, and then just come grab these 4 points. Once you've got that, like this setup here, you're probably good to go until you're actually going to swap to the other setup. Your crits will no longer work initially. So if you do want to have your crits working before you do the swap, you do need to have critical corrosion up here. I had singularity, so it was pretty easy to get to. If you don't have singularity, like it's your first build ever, you are going to have to spend the points to get up here to get that. Because it's allowing your dot to crit. Even though this says it can do on-hit effects, crit technically isn't an on-hit effect. So it doesn't allow your dot to crit without that node. You want your dots to be critting, because if your dots are critting, then your aftershocks are higher, and aftershock is a huge, huge portion of your damage in this build. I've been sticking with aftershock. It just seems extremely strong. I probably should try to learn a couple other ways to scale damage, but I've just been going with what works. It works on many skills. And even though it is still an aftershock build, it does work differently than the last one. It's not completely the same, so I did enjoy figuring out how aftershock would work for this one. Alright, so I think that about covers it for like the beginner version. If you don't have singularity and you can't get up to this node, singularity, if you weren't aware, is a chip that lets you start a new skill tree. So because I put it in this slot, I can make this little skill tree here, even though it's not connected. These nodes you aren't going to really focus on until you have singularity, other than like critical corrosion. You can get up and get this one, do the dot conversion, it's very good, but you're going to want this node before you start swapping. Once you have singularity, and you've got the points to do it, the finished one, so I'll discard here, will look more like this. You can see we've got a little bit more over here, a little bit different over here, and I'll just explain it here for you. So we changed the pathing a little bit. We take that thermal energy, but we go in here and get the plus energy, because at this point getting +1 energy is actually stronger for us than getting % damage. So like even though we go through here and get this increased thermal and electric, this energy, we're getting 5 different stats from it, so it's much more return for us. We change our pathing at this point. Instead of going over this way and coming around here, we come around this way because it does actually save us points, and we want to go for much higher value nodes than what's available to us here. We grab a chip socket along the way for 1 point. That is huge. Chips will be a big amount of your damage. You can see that this is saying 42% of mine, so it's huge how much damage increase it gives you once everything starts to get into those multiplicative layers. We go across here, and we come down to get the Parasitic Rush. More damage for parasites, and they spawn faster. It's pretty self-explanatory there. We come up here. I'll explain this before I move along. Wow, that's going to give me a lot of damage. This one, damage per dash slot, we will get eventually. I'm not level 100, but on my next level, that would be your last point if you're level 100, at least in my opinion. It's really good because we are stacking dashes, mostly due to the fact that it makes our dash regenerate faster. We're taking 40% of our damage from our dash, and dash starts recharging instantly. So it's very nice damage mitigation there. So time we can get this, we usually try to get it, like increase damage per dash shot. I'll show you later, we have it on our engine, and that actually does increase our damage as well. It doesn't seem to be a local stat for that item. We have 32% increased damage here. This isn't huge, but it's mostly just so we can get to that chip socket for the Chaos Circuit. Chaos Circuits, the further they are away, the more effect you get. And you need at least 2 of them. So each one's giving 0.5, so it's 1% more aftershock damage per skill node between the 2. And you can see it follows this red line. It goes all the way up to this one. So that's giving us a massive amount of damage. Probably a majority of our damage is coming from those 2 chips. Then we go down here. We grab the 24% more damage over time because that is what the build's doing. We get Time Lord for our Soulstone. Time Lord gives increased time, 60% more damage over time, and 20% less damage over time taken. So it's everything there is just very good for our build. The time, we aren't time stacking, but it's a secondary stat that is huge for us because time does increase the tick rate of dot. So any time that you can get that isn't replacing energy, I would get. It will put your damage up a significant amount. After this, before we go down here, I'm going to just run up to the Singularity tree real quick. So we use Singularity to start the new tree. We get the critical corrosion so that we can crit with dot. We go up and we get a socket for a Dragon Eye, which we are getting energy on. We'll be getting energy on each of those, so it's going to be 45 energy each. And then we get 1.4% increased damage over time, per time. This is really good because time speeds up damage over time, and now we're getting increased damage from it as well. So that's a very nice multiplier. Next, we'll come down here. These are just dash recharge nodes, but still very useful. We get 30% more damage from our parasites. We take the aberration, but we don't go down here anymore just because it's not giving us enough for the points that we're going to have to spend. We're really going for high value nodes at this point. We come up here and we get another chip slot, just because chips are amazing. Multi-luck. Deflector shield. So this one you don't really want to take right away. You want to wait until you have a huge barrier. Otherwise you are going to feel extremely glass cannon. Essentially you trade all your armor in exchange for deflecting nuclear damage, having 50% to your nuclear resistance, and plus 5 to maximum nuclear resistance. This one's a little bit confusing. I believe it reflects all nuclear damage that enemies are dealing. Because when we were testing this initially, a friend of mine, Biz, wanted to test out the Plutonium rod, and he put this on. It was still damaging his character. So I'm not 100% clear on this, but I do go with this just because it does seem to negate nuclear damage a large amount. Even though we aren't going with actually damaging ourselves with the nuclear thing, it's much easier to just scale one defensive I found in this game, so I just go with pure barrier or deflector shield over armor in this case. Here's where things get kind of interesting on this build. So this is what I was talking about earlier, where this one kind of plays very differently than the other one. So the other build I designed, we did base kinetic damage. In this one, we're doing base nuclear damage. We're converting 50% of our explosive damage to nuclear damage as well. If we come and look at our damage, and I'm sorry if this gets confusing, because it's a little bit confusing for me as well when I'm figuring it out. If we look at our total damage per second, you're going to see that we're doing a majority of the damage as nuclear. We are using a mod to convert. You can see 60% of damage, electric damage, is converted to nuclear damage. It's the same thing on that. This doesn't have any conversion. It's just the beta ray specifically. Electric damage converted to nuclear damage. So what's happening here is we're taking a lot of our explosive damage, right? We've got 50% of explosive damage converted to nuclear, 50% of explosive damage converted to electric. Our weapons, if we look here, have all explosive damage. Explosive damage is the best scaling stat for us. We're converting that explosive damage into nuclear at 50%. So 50% of it just going straight into nuclear damage for our weapon. And 50% of it is being converted into electric damage. 50% of it is electric damage. But 60% of that 50% is being converted back to nuclear, which seems like we'd be losing a little bit. It's you know, if it's 60% of 50, that's only going to be like 30-ish% of that 50. But what's really cool about this is it allows us to shock the enemy. And in this game, shocking actually decreases the resistances, all resistances of the enemy. So it becomes an extremely big multiplier, being able to do that, especially where we can increase the effect of shock. With these nodes, we're getting, I believe, 90% increased effect of shock. So it's almost double the effect of the shock, which gives minus 1% to all resistances and can stack up to 100 times. So we're getting almost minus 200% resistances by speccing into this node and taking these points along the way. That's the big difference between the two conversions, is with nuclear as your base, you're able to do this, and it's another huge scaler. Other than that, it's basically the same as the beginning tree. We're still taking Armageddon, we're still taking damage discharge. There's a chip socket here. I can't remember if that was on the one that I showed initially, but you want to go and grab that. You still come and grab the crit. You grab this 12% increased energy. And then the top here, I know that's basically identical. I think I put this point instead of this point, but it doesn't matter in that case or that regard. Yeah, if you have any questions about the skill tree or why I did anything, feel free to comment and ask as well, because I understand these things can be pretty confusing. It's a lot to go through. Oh, we've got Diamond up here, so you get an extra slot. The reason for Diamond, since we're talking about the Endgame build, is we're eventually, in our items here, going to want to get a 4 chip socket thruster. That would be more damage than what we have now. We'd probably take out time. That's going to lose us 32%. Or we could take this one out. That's going to lose us 26%. Actually, it's probably more if we had this go. It would be one of these two that we'd have to take out. Or if you want to go extremely last cannon, pure damage, you could put time in your tree, get rid of diamond, and just have basically 0 resistances. But it is going to be a lot more damage being able to fit in the 2 chips. I'll go over the gear here real quick and all the mods. So on both weapons, I found that having a fractured mod wasn't actually very useful, or a fractured affix. I craft a couple different variations of weapons. I could show you in my stash here what all I did for the weapons. And I'm sorry, they're not all going to be like right where I need them to be for me to show you. But this is one that I crafted. As you can see, it's less damage in both hands. I have also tested it. It's less damage in testing. I have this one with multi-crit, significantly less damage. I've got this one with corrode on hit. Says it's more damage. It's not more damage. It thinks it's more damage, but the thing is, your viruses get increased effect as a stat for awakening, which is extremely strong. So that stat will never beat that out. Yeah, I tried crafting a couple different, like what I considered basically GG weapons, and these are the ones that seem to be the best. This one isn't finished yet. Like I can still smack it with some dice and get it up a little bit higher. I'd also want to get that tier 2 to a tier 1. That would be more damage. But you'll see we're already doing plenty of damage on the build. One thing I will specify here, I'm going to take this off the Abyss Walker. We're still at 1.26 QA. You don't need the Abyss Walker. However, you can see if you get one like this, your damage is going to go through the roof. It is absolutely wild. I'm going to put it back on now because I like seeing my damage like that, but you don't need the Abyss Walker, and not having this, you do have the option to put on a much more tanky shield if you're experiencing issues with that. I just wanted to see how much damage I could get on the build, to see how far I could push it. I'll just hover over the weapons here one more time. Alright. So the runes are going to be, or the mods, I guess they'd be called. The mods are going to be Parasite, Infection, Beta Ray, Aftershock, Corrode, and Nuke. This is just for the more explosive damage. You don't really need the plus 25% Aftershock chance. Like you can see, they're both capped without it. But the more explosive damage is very nice. This one is your offhand, so this one's doing your debuffing. That's why we've got both Corrode and Nuke. One thing that I did figure out that isn't readily available information, it might be in the Discord, but it's not something that is told to you in the game. Your virus limit does not apply to your parasites. So your parasites can place both of these viruses without having to have any node that says that you can apply more than one virus. So make sure to remember that when you're making the build. You do not need to spec anything that'll let you apply multiple viruses. On this one, same thing, Parasite, Infection. Then we go with Overdrive for the more maximum weapon damage. I have an Awakened one. You don't need Awakened on any of these. Not necessary. The strongest Awakening, if you're looking for one, would be your Parasite. Getting that +1 additional attached is huge. After Overdrive, Beta Ray again. We like that. Shock. Shock is huge. It's absolutely massive, and you're getting electric damage as well. If you can be shocking the enemy 100% of the time with dots, that is insane. You literally just shred all their resistances in a matter of seconds. And then Inferno for the increased explosive damage, and you get increased area of effect, which is huge. This is very, very nice. You can't take Steam Hammer because you are converting a lot, but Inferno is a nice compromise, and you get increased area effect, and you can get the Awakening that gives you the 40% increased explosive damage as well. Alright, moving on. We've got Infestus again. Infestus is pretty straightforward. It's if you're using parasites, you're gonna want to be wearing Infestus, almost guaranteed. We do allocate Nuclear Storm with it. If you're curious how you get an allocation, you do get that using these, and you get these from goblins in the game. So like, if there's loot goblins that'll pop up every now and again, they'll drop these for you. And they get a lot more common once you get into maps, if you haven't seen any yet. So this is the shield we went with. If you don't have a good crafted shield, I will mention this here now. So in the new version of the build, I would go with this. If you can get your hands on one, a Shield of Arrestium is just a nice little stat stacker one. If you can get one that's got decent rolls on it, or you're willing to put a couple dice in it to pump it up, 25 energy and 25 time is very strong early on. And then later on you'll craft for the +2. We're pretty glass cannon in this, so I went pretty heavy into dodge where I could. And then we get % increase energy, of course. The Abysswalker, honestly, you're going to probably just have a crafted shield here for the beginner version. For the veteran version or the endgame version, if you don't have an Abysswalker, just make another one of these. It is going to be way less damage. But unless you're ready to farm the Abyss to get one of these, it's gonna be a little bit. Like you're probably gonna have to farm for a good 5 to 10 hours to get a perfect one, unless you're very lucky. If you're very lucky, you might get a one that you can roll into a perfect one right off the bat. The thing is, even if you get one with the fractured energy on it, it might be bad rolls, right? And it does use the purple dice to re-roll it. Those are expensive. Like I've been playing the game a decent little bit, and I've only got 900 of them on me. I'm sure there's people that have mountains of them, but as a new player, you're not going to have a whole bunch. So farming more of these is going to be more realistic than just slamming one until it gets the stats that you want. Papyrus, you should be able to get this very quickly, pretty easy. It can be equipped at like level 8. So like as soon as you get it, basically just throw it on, and then eventually you're going to want to farm a 2-chip socket one. The thruster, we go for 2-chip sockets, +2 level of all mods, 30% increased damage per dashlet. So everything on here is very good for the build. The only thing I will say is there is technically a stronger thruster. If you can get one with a +2 or has 2-chip sockets fracture, you can actually craft 2-chip sockets on it as well to get a total of 4-chip sockets on your thruster. You will lose defensives or time, but if we look at our build here, you're going to basically get that time back. Like, let's look here. We have 133, right? So 26% increase is going to literally be what? 29 time, and with 2 chips you're probably going to get that 29 time back, or very close to 20. Like you probably, if it's not 29, it's probably close to 20 at least, plus all the additional stats on top of it. So like this is, losing this isn't a big deal when you get 2 chip sockets. Last thing I'll go over here for the build, and then I'll just do a brief overview, see if I've missed anything. Venom, 2% chance to gain Venom boost on enemy destroyed. Venom gives you more dot damage, essentially. If we go and look here, the Venom boost, 3% more dot damage. So it's a huge aura for us. +4 dash slots. This is very big if you are taking the things that give you more damage per dash slot. That's one of the reasons we have it on here. You can see there we have that 30%. Energy gives you more energy. Shamrock gives you more luck. Field, increased effect of your fields, and lethality for increased critical strike chance and crit damage, because we are a crit dot build. All these are very important. Field is the one you're going to have on there, and you're going to want to have these on the same side as Field, otherwise they don't buff them. Field only affects the ones that are on its side. As you can see, if I move the slots, the damage that we're dealing is very different. Alright, let me just look over one more time, see if there's anything I wanted to mention. Don't believe so. Alright, I'm going to show you guys a map here. Probably should have put a bit of gameplay at the first, but I'll put the gameplay at the end. Alright, and we're going to go through a 10th echo, just so I can showcase the build here. You can see that the clear speed of this build is absolutely insane. You don't really have to move, you don't have to do anything. The parasites with their increased spawn range will literally go off screen and kill stuff for you. The damage that we're dealing is so high that even though it's dot, it's killing most things instantly. This is a tier 7 10th echo. We haven't pushed this one quite up to the point where the other one is in Abyss, but that is due to the fact that we're not nearly as tanky on this one. It is a lot harder to push Abyss in this one unless you're instantly killing everything, especially when you do the switch to like the endgame build. You're getting a lot of damage in exchange for a lot of tankiness. And after I'm done showcasing this for you guys, I'm going to show a quick DPS test, and then that'll end out the video here, because we are almost at the 40-minute mark again, which I don't really want to pass. You can see that we have two different size circles just due to that little bit of area effect we get on one. I'm a big fan of this build. The clear speed of it is amazing. It's pretty nice to look at. Kind of just looks like you're in a disco rave party. Everybody's got glow sticks on. Alright, we'll do a quick DPS test here for the build. Take that out. Sector, dojo, and I think we need to do a tier 7. I'm not sure if it actually matters. Stash. Missions. And we will do a 1-minute test just because this is a dot build. It has ramp. If you want to see what it's like, actually, that's the thing. If you do a 30-second one, it's going to be very close to the 60-second one. If you do a 120-second one, it's going to be much higher. Okay, we need to restart. I apologize about that. My tree is set up for unique monsters to spawn in pairs, which we do not want. Do I have that on everything? I guess I did. Alright. It should work this time. Nope. This is awkward. Why is it doing that? Is there another gem that has it? Yep. All of them have it. What the hell? What was I on when I was crafting that? Oh, because it's the dice duplicate chance as well. That's why. Alright. Here we go. Actual DPS test. Incoming. not exactly the most exciting DPS test. It's not really, it's just, we're just chilling. He's looking at me, I'm looking at him. We both got circles on us. We got about 30 seconds left on the DPS there. I do believe we were approaching 100 quadrillion on this build. I know we had passed 50 last time I had checked. But I'm not 100% sure. This one's definitely capable of hitting over 100 quad. I'm not sure if it's capable of things beyond that. I'm not an expert at the game by any means. I'm just making builds to, that I enjoy. The ones that I played. And yeah, 45 or 74 quadrillion. So it's doing quite a bit of damage. Again, if you do have any questions about the build, I'm happy to answer any. I'm going to post this in the Discord and then on my YouTube as well. I'm in the Discord. You can always at me. If you don't, I probably won't see it. But if you do, it'll put a little red thing on the Discord and I'll go look and see what it is. Other than that, thank you for all the kind words that everybody gave me on the last one. And I hope you guys have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.